stuff, guys. So just to give a context of what this session is about, so I'll be the co-host for this session. Yeah, sorry. I'll be the co-host for this session. We'll be joined by Anshuman Singh. Anshuman is the co-founder of Scalar, and sort of he'll take you through the current job landscape that is there. What does it take to sort of get into those big product companies? What are the free resources that you can possibly fetch for about learning these products, about learning these topics, and lastly, we'll be telling you how Scalar can help you probably get through this whole process and make you sort of a streamlined one, so that you don't have to go anywhere else in order to find all these stuff, right? So that's what the agenda of the session is. Anshuman will be explaining that in a bit and in a detailed format. I just gave you a brief of what the session would be about, right? Now, so a couple of ground rules, guys. On the right hand side, you can see a chat and a questions tab, right? So I request everyone to put up your questions on the questions tab. I'll be taking all the questions. Anshuman will be joining in a minute about now, and he'll be sharing his iPad screen, so he cannot be able to see the chat, right? However, he can see the yes and no, the count of the yes and no that will pop up on the right hand side of his tab. So yeah, that's about it. And if anyone has any questions, obviously you can post in the questions tab. When Anshuman is done with this particular piece, then we can maybe take some of the questions after that. Now, with that being said, I think Anshuman is here, and you must be wondering who am I, because I've been blabbering on for 4 minutes and I'm not given my introduction. So I am Pramay Tripathi. I'm one of the marketing associates at Scalar. My job is to, sort of plan out the events, plan out what's going on, analyze the new trends, and sort of pull our audience together so that they get the best thing, they get the best opportunity to upskill themselves through Scalar. And one of my, obviously the tasks are to take this session and answer all your questions that you have, right? Okay, so Abhilash in the meantime asks, when is the new batch session going to start? So the session would start around 15th of March. The batch would start around 15th of March, and yeah, we'll go from there. So this is done. Yeah, I think Anshuman is there. Anshuman has joined us, so I'll pass it on to Anshuman, and then we can proceed with the session. So yeah, Anshuman, over to you.
Thank you. My name is Anshuman. I'm one of the co-founders of Scalar Academy. My background is that I graduated from IIIT Hyderabad in 2010. Was a very active competitive programmer back then, so I represented India twice in ACM ICPC World Finals. Now, for those of you who don't know, you don't need to know a lot about ICPC, but in general, ICPC is, for those who compete in competitive programming, is considered to be like the Olympics of competitive programming. Post that, I joined Facebook as my first job in 2010, where I was part of the Facebook messages and chat team. I led the team that built out Facebook Messenger, which I hope a lot of you guys have used. I was also involved in the acquisition of WhatsApp, which I again hope a lot of you guys have used. And I along with 4 other engineers, helped set up the Facebook London office, which was their first engineering office outside of the United States. So I helped do that, and then I came back to India. One of the reasons why both me and Abhimanyu started Scalar, and before that interview bit, was because we both saw in our own families and in our own close circles people that we had known not get to great colleges. And in my case, for example, my own brothers are also aspiring engineers. They're younger than me, and they couldn't get to great colleges. And then we saw the quality of education, and we felt like something is really, really broken. So to 2014 end is where both of us left our jobs. We started with the thesis that maybe the thing that will work here is building something which provides free content, and that's when we were very fascinated by Duolingo, which is an app where you can learn languages, and we actually replicated some of that learning into InterviewBit to help people learn coding and prepare for interviews of Google, Facebook, Amazon, those kind of companies. We ran, and like InterviewBit is still running, but like one of the learnings from there was that InterviewBit was still helping a very, very small section of people. We realized that education is about a lot more things than just content. Content is exactly like a book. I can have multiple books, but just having books does not make sure that I learn. And therefore, we felt like we have to rethink about our way of solving for education. And in 2019, with that thought process, we started thinking about what would an online Stanford look like. If we had to create a very, very high quality online institute, what would that look like? And that's when Scalar Academy was born. I'll talk about Scalar Academy a little later on, but that's just a very quick intro about myself. I'll pass it on to understand who are you guys as well. I'll pass it on, and then let's actually do a few.
Sorry to cut you off, Anshuman, there. I didn't mean to enter it like this. Yeah, so as Anshuman mentioned that in order for us to proceed ahead with the session, we need to know what your guys' background is as well. So you can see a yes and no in the chat, right? So there's a question for everyone. If you're a working professional, you can put up a yes, and if you're a student, you can put a no. Yeah, for everyone typing in the chat, I mean, you can see a yes and no option, right? So yeah, that we can actually move from there. Altaf, how can you be in between? I mean, just put a working professional if you are. If you are sort of in between both, that makes sense. So, okay. So seems like most of the folks are working professionals. Yeah, just stop spamming right now, and I need another question. I need to ask another question. Yeah. So for all the working professionals, right? Just put a thumbs up if you're from a service-based company, and put a thumbs down if you're from a product-based company. Okay. Okay, so seems like most Anmol there is, but there's not a dedicated batch for beginners, right? So if you are starting from scratch, unfortunately, that dedicated batch is not there. However, you get there are, I think you get 3 attempts at a test when you try to enroll for Scalar. So based off of that, you're classified into 3 batches, which is advanced, intermediate, and beginner. And I'll talk in depth about what those sort of batches cover. Meanwhile, Anshuman is on standby, so I'll just let him continue with the session, and we take the doubts as we progress. So, Anshuman, I hope you can see the data. So I'll just let you continue with the session with the topics that you've prepared, and we'll take the questions in between. So yeah, back to you.
Awesome. So it seems like most of you are working professionals. A big majority are working professionals, and a decent number actually right now is, it's almost a 50-50 between service and product companies, but a decent number in service companies. Therefore, I'll use that information to actually decide on the agenda for today's class. What therefore I would plan to do is keep things very, very relevant for working professionals. What that means is that if you are currently a student in the first year or second year of college, or even third year of college, this session might not be super relevant. We are still happy to help you out. So you can email us. My email ID is anshuman@scalar.com. Feel free to email me. I'm happy helping out in whatever form. But I mean, this session might not be the best session if you are currently in college and in the first, second, or third year. Now, if you're a working professional, things that we're going to focus on today is one, just talking about what the landscape looks like, right? Which is what kind of companies are out there, what kind of levels exist within engineering. Two, for people who aspire to work at top tier product companies, there, like, what should you focus on learning? And this is, by the way, like, very, just making it very, very clear, this is not only to help you crack interviews, but to help you become a better, well-rounded software engineer. Where not only are you able to get into top tier product companies, but you're also able to perform well there. That's the second thing which we would discuss. What is the curriculum for your own self preparation if you were learning? And the third piece is I would also focus a little bit on Scalar. I already see a few questions on Scalar. So I'll focus a little bit of effort, like time, talking about Scalar. What does Scalar do? What are things inside Scalar, etc. Lastly, we will reserve some time for Q&A, which is you guys can ask questions and we will answer those questions. Does that agenda make sense to everyone? Just a quick yes, no?
Right. So I hope that Anshuman made pretty clear what the session agenda is about. Even I mentioned it in the start, so I hope we are clear on that. Now there are some questions in the meantime, and since there are a lot of questions, I'll try to take some right now. So Prajwal asks, can someone crack a product-based company in 6 months if he works hard? Prajwal, you can, but you have to understand that a lot goes into it. So it doesn't. There's not a simple. I mean, you cannot define it by a time frame, right? Because just in Scalar, I'm talking about. I think 9 months is required just for the completion of the course. And in that course, you'll be learning data structure, DSA, right? Then you'll be learning low-level design, high-level design, right? So these, to cover these topics and to cover it in depth, along with and not just cover it, in order for you to master it, it takes a lot of time, right? So as these topics are the most important topics that these companies demand, which Anshuman will go in depth about, there you will get an idea of why 6 months is not enough time. I mean, surely you can do it yourself if you try, but that's a very big ask if you ask me. I think I answered this one. So Banka asks, this session suitable for looking jobs? I'm not sure I got your question. So if you're asking that if you are looking for a job, is this session relevant for you? Sure. If you're looking for a full stack or a backend developer job, maybe in SD 123, or you wanted to join Scala, or you wanted to upskill yourself in maybe these important topics, which are data structure algorithms, high-level design, and low-level design, then we give you a roadmap ahead of how you can do it, where you can do it from, and how can we help on doing that, right? So this is what the session is about. The course duration, Kabir, is 9 months, as I mentioned. It can go on. After 9 months, the course is completed. The pay, we'll get through those numbers. We'll get to those numbers. So I would not like to spoil it for everyone. But before that, I want you to know what actually you have to learn in order to get there. The cost of the course is 2.5 lakhs, with 10 to 35% of, 10 to 35K of that would be. You can get a scholarship and get rid of that. And there are multiple EMI options, like you can pay all the stuff in 19 payments, right? And the other thing is, if in the initial 2 weeks you're feeling like this is not, if this particular, investment is not working out, then you can, you can withdraw it as well. So these are the options that we give to you, right? Then Abhinav, yes, it is. So you, and I'll not explain why, but you'll get the idea why it is good for people who have 6-7 months of experience in the service-based sector, right? because like our key attribute that we focus on is to make people switch from service to product. I mean, uh, it's actually an internal choice, but definitely most of the people do prefer to work in the product based company rather than the service based, right? So after you've gained an experience, so you have a perspective of what goes into it, right? So that will get uh, that'll be helpful to you. Yes. So getting offers from FANG in India versus other MNCs, unicorns Europe, which is relatively easier and is a better career prospect. So the easier one I would say is getting unicorns in Europe. It's a great question actually. I'll actually ask Anshuman to cover this, but see the referral channel that Scala has, and obviously the peer community that refers us to the other big companies. So for that, I think the Mang companies in India, I mean, you might have it easier to get there, but the interview process is very rigorous, so to speak. So you'll get drilled on data structures and algorithms in the interviews, in the Mang interviews. However, the if you're asking about which interviews are relatively easy, then the MNCs and the unicorns in Europe, of course. And of course, the career prospect. I mean, obviously, Mang one would have a better one. Although I'm not sure if that is relevant to the session, but okay. Course duration, Santosh, is of 9 months. Okay, so seems to be a lot of questions there. So what I'll do is I'll maybe you can see an upvote option in the chat, right? So as there are a lot of questions and we are on a time constraint, so just upvote the questions. I'll try to cover each and every question as possible, but yeah, sure. I think I'll let Anshuman take on the next part, and then we can sort of take the questions in between, right? Keep asking questions. I'll try to cover it. So meanwhile, Anshuman, yeah, I'll just pass it on back to you, and then we'll handle the questions later. So yeah, back to you.
Okay, okay, awesome. In that case, let's actually move forward. But before I move forward, I will do a very quick poll with you. Just a yes no, right? Like you see a yes no in front of you. The first step when you take a long journey is believing that that journey is going to be fruitful. For example, if I want to build a six-pack abs, the first portion of the journey is I have to believe I can do that by going to the gym. Right? If I don't believe, and then when I start, chances are I'll give up in 10 days, 15 days, maybe 16 days or so. So the first question, and this is, by the way, like coming from some of the concerns I heard from my own brothers. So therefore, I'm going to frame it as a question. A lot of people who don't come from the best of backgrounds. So, for example, if I come from a college that is not very well known, or if I come work at a company that is not very well known, or if I work at a service company and have been working there for a very, very long time, a lot of people believe that because of their background, they might not even get interviewed at some top tech peer companies. Do you believe that statement is true, or that you believe that statement is false? So say yes if you believe that is true, uh, no if you believe that that statement is not true.
Yeah, real quick, guys. Just a quick yes no. Meanwhile, Rajan, I believe, asks. If the current job is taking time, how do you get time to prepare for Scala? Rajan, let me tell you that 95% of the people that are enrolled at Scala are working professionals, and they do manage to sort of like bounce in between. Um, we're not asking much. I mean, 2 hours daily is something. I mean, so in terms of week, 15 hours a week would be the minimum, like not the minimum, but the average time that you'll have to give for this particular piece. So yeah, so that's sure. So yeah, Anjuman. So I hope you can see the data. So I'll just not break the tie here, and we'll just continue with the session, and then we can resolve the doubts later. So I'll just pass it on back to you. I hope you can see the results. Yeah. Otherwise, I'll just.
Right. So it seems like some of you still believe that just because of your background could become a hindrance. Now, I'm not going to claim here that background, irrespective of background, the journey is going to be the same for everyone. Sure, I mean, for those of you who do not come from the most optimal background, the journey is really hard. But there is still a you can embark on, and you can still succeed. All that will need to happen is you just need to knock on multiple doors. Somebody else might have to just knock on 2 doors and they still get through. Somebody else might have to knock on multiple doors. And you guys might feel that, hey, Anshuman, it's very easy for you to sit across the table, make those claims. Just to build that belief, I also want to show you some information. Right? And look, I only have access to information of people who have studied at Scalar. So, but like I have a lot of those data points. So I just want to maybe share those with you. Let me just give me 1 second. I'll share my screen. I'll share my screen 1 second. Now, if you see my screen here, let me actually change the number of characters here so that their names are not visible. This is a live query of the previous few months' data. Live query from the database. Now, what I'm going to do here is you can see here people, their companies prior to Academy, where are they working right now, what position were they in, when did they graduate, what is the college, etc. Right? So all of that information is here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to search for a few companies where people were working before they enrolled in Scalar, just to show you what kind of transitions do happen, and they happen all the time. For example, let's give me 1 second. So one of the service companies, I'm just going to pick one service company, is Infosys. As you see here, like there's somebody who made transition from Infosys to iRadius, Infosys to Oracle, Infosys to Microsoft. And this transition happened after 10 years of experience. Infosys to Brick and Bold, which is a great startup. Infosys SalesCare, Altair, iRadius again, Nurture Farm, Hasbin, CleverTap, Healthify Me, Make My Trip. All of these are very, very good companies. I mean, none of them are bad companies. Very similarly, let's take another service company, TCS. If you see here, there are 53 entries of TCS. Here also, again, like TCS to Jovio, TCS to CleverTap, TCS to CleverTap again, TCS to Amazon. Different experiences, different kind of college backgrounds. Even if you look at college backgrounds here, some of them are IITs, some of them are BITS, but like a lot of them are like colleges that probably I haven't heard of before. I mean, these are colleges not very, very well known. The only reason why I'm showing this to you is to show you that irrespective of your background, as long as you learn the right things, today's world cares about your skills. Today's world cares about what you can do today instead of what your background is. There is some stigma with respect to background, but as long as you learn the right things, there is always going to be a path where you end up doing really, really well. So that's the first. Before I discuss anything, it is very important to believe from inside that I can take up a journey and I can succeed. And therefore, I showed you this data. Before I begin, just want to get a yes and no from everyone here. Now, do you believe that if you learn the right things, then any kind of changes?
Right. I hope that you guys have now gotten an idea that background could not become a hindrance, as we have seen a lot of transition from, just basically switching domains. So someone working at a mechanical engineer enrolled at Scalar got to know the right things and then joined the companies, joined the big product companies. Madhu will go through that data, but yeah, definitely there must be some people that have joined companies in Scalar, so that have joined companies in Europe. So yeah. Um, so I don't know why people are reluctant about getting jobs in Europe, but this is the first time I've seen multiple questions on Europe. So anyway, yeah. So just pick up on a few questions, right? I'll just do 5 now, and then we'll move on. So can we do competitive coding in Python language? Yeah, you can. I mean, Yeah, definitely. I've done MBA finance. It's for me to data science course. So it depends. So I mean, I don't see that having a linkage anywhere. But I mean, as Anshuman mentioned, that the background would not become a hindrance. So if you completely want to switch your domain as well, that's not even a problem. What's the course duration? I think I already covered this. Working as an admin in hospital. What I'm not sure, Ganesh, that I follow. Duration of the course, Abdul, is 9 months. Yes, Murli, there is a roadmap for upskilling, so and we'll cover that as well, so you don't have to worry. Yes, someone asked that if you're a student, is it helpful for me? Yeah, it will be useful, and you will get sort of an idea of how what the job landscape and the curriculum is like. Okay, so Anshuman, I think is ready with his job landscape piece, so we'll just let. Um, okay, Altaf, I'll just take this last question by Altaf. What if there's a year gap between passing years? I'm working in sales for me now. So that won't be a problem unless like you have a very solid reason to back it. So I mean that only happens in the HR round. So the technical rounds won't even ask you that question. So whenever you progress through an interview and you go through that, and they'll then ask you that why was there a gap? And if you have like sort of a solid reason, like in every interview goes, right? If you have a solid reason that maybe you had to do something, but you have to be transparent about it. So and as most of our alumni do, I think they mention it before. So if someone is sitting on an interview, I mean, if someone is sitting on an interview with me and I am the interviewer, I would expect I would expect the one I'm interviewing to actually tell me like he has a gap, so that it's not like it'll not be something that we have to ponder upon later. So that if that piece is sorted out, then it won't be a problem. And of course, the sales force would not actually be a problem as well, because as I mentioned that it, like as Anshuman just showed you the data as well, that many people have joined from different domains, and that worked out well from them. So that won't be a problem. Yeah. So meanwhile, I think Anshuman is ready with his job landscape piece. So I'll just quickly let Anshuman continue, and then we'll take the questions later. So Anshuman, yeah, back to you.
Awesome. Very, very glad to see that. I'll maybe then continue with what the today's landscape looks like, job landscape. What are the different levels? What kind of trajectories do most people take? And then I would also start discussing some bit on the curriculum for things to learn. Like if you want to get to the top of the campus. First piece on the landscape, and this is something which a lot of you might be aware of. There are service companies and then there are product companies. Service companies are companies that would typically go to another company and get projects from them and then implement projects on their own behalf, right? So companies like TCS, Infosys, Wipro, Tech Mahindra, these are the giants in the space. Now, without any fault of service companies, the problem is that there your end consumer is your client. So basically, you have to work as your client wants to work. So now imagine I go to a Nike and I get a project from them, and if their thing is written in Java, Nike would tell me as a service company that, hey, I want 100 Java engineers. 50 of them should have more than 5 years of experience. So without the fault of service company, just because of the nature of the business, they index more on your tech stack. Are you a Java engineer? Are you a .NET engineer? Are you let's say Angular developer, or are you a React developer? They index a lot more on the tech stack. On the other hand, there are product companies. Product companies usually build products which could be for an end consumer who is somebody like you and me, or could be for an end consumer which is a company which uses a SaaS software. In those cases, the delivery of the product is more important than the tech stack being used. There, the mindset then becomes that tech stack is a tool, but eventually, like delivering a world-class experience to the end consumers, that's the more important thing. And therefore, those companies, when they look for engineers, they index less on tech stack, more on what can you do on the job, right? And what kind of complicated problems can you solve? What kind of complicated software can you build? I'll elaborate on that in just a few seconds when we discuss the curriculum. But given that context, I mean, there's also, by the way, difference in the pay scale as well. So, for example, the starting salary in a service company is anywhere from 2 to 4 lakhs per annum. But the starting salary in product companies is significantly higher, especially the top tier tech companies. They pay much higher. For example, in product companies, the starting salaries for entry level engineer vary from 8 lakhs to 45 lakhs. For example, Goldman Sachs goes and hires from IITs, pays 45 lakhs to a new grad. Versus again, like if you see the service salaries are fairly lower as compared to that. Different natures of businesses, different pay scales altogether, and these salaries sometimes look unreal. But they are being paid. I can attest to that because we've seen a bunch of scalar graduates also get those kind of salaries. Now, let me come to the part about the curriculum, right? Which is what should you learn if you aspire to get into some of these companies? What is important versus what is not important? Now, I also see a bunch of questions. Rest assured, there is going to be a Q&A portion. We will answer all of the questions. We will not leave any question unanswered. So just give us some time. We'll finish this and then we'll go on to the questions. All right. So let me start writing here on the curriculum piece. Now, the way I'm going to break down the curriculum is in 3 parts. One is, what is the topic? Now, how is that topic relevant for interviews? Because there is getting into the company, the part that I have to solve. And there is a third part, which is, how is it going to help me with job performance? So those 3 aspects we could talk about. What topic should I learn? How does it help me with clearing interviews? And how does it help me with being really, really good at the job? Those are the 3 things that we will address. The first topic is something that you would have heard so many times now. Everyone keeps discussing this on LinkedIn, on most other social media, is data structures, algorithm, and problem solving. Data structures and algorithm is essentially using certain data structures, certain recipes to be able to solve any given problem very, very efficiently. I can go further to elaborate into that, but like think of problems like, for example, let's say you work at LinkedIn. At LinkedIn, you see that when you go on profiles, you see first degree connection or second degree connection or third degree connection. Let's say you were supposed to write the code for that, which is given the scale of LinkedIn, find out that given 2 users, let's say Anshuman and Abhimanyu, what is the degree of separation between those? Are we a first degree connection or second degree connection or third degree connection? Those kind of problems are data structures. Or for example, let's say you're using the Uber app, right? Like on Uber app, the first and foremost thing is like, when I raise a request, find me the nearest available cab when I am raising the request. Right? Now, how do you do that? That is also a part of data structures and algorithms. There's so many applications of DSA, and these are just some examples. Even like, for example, things like, let's say you use WhatsApp app, right? When you search for something, how does that search work? For example, when I search for COVID, how do I find all messages that contain COVID? And then this is understanding how stuff works inside. Right? You can't just say that I'll use this library and things will happen. But like, how does it work internally? If you were supposed to write it, if you were supposed to implement it, how would you go about it? So that field is data structures and algorithms. And again, if you see here, I haven't mentioned any name of any programming language. I haven't said it's DSA and problem solving in Java or DSA and problem solving in C++. It is language agnostic. You can use it with any programming language to solve these problems. Now, talking about the interview relevance, for all levels, no matter your seniority level, if you are interviewing at some of these companies, for example, I'll talk about my manager at Facebook. My manager at Facebook had 26 years of experience. came from Microsoft. Um, he was the one who had led the Windows XP team to the launch. Even when that manager got interviewed, he had to go through 2 DSA rounds. Somebody as senior as 26 years. The truth is, if you, no matter your experience, you might have 10 years of experience, you might have 15 years of experience, you might have 20 years of experience, you might even be a new grad, just graduated from college. Chances are you will be grilled on data structure and algorithm. You can't run away from it. Sometimes we feel that we are too senior. Why are people still judging us on data structure and algorithm? And the truth is, like, the industry would still judge you on DSA, right? So this is important irrespective of it. Very important, actually. So this piece is very important. Now, the second debate that goes on is like, does this actually help with job performance? There are, and like the argument made is, look, I mean, there are so complex problems that we are asked to solve in interviews, but most of our work does not involve that level of complexity of problems that we solve. So how is it really helping us become really good software engineers? The two arguments which I want to put forward. One is, you will notice that if you start solving a lot of problems for at a lot of frequency, and you do that for a very long time, for example, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, you'll start to see that you're getting into a state where your coding accuracy is going up. It means like you write the code and it compiles and it runs in the first go, as long as you know the approach. So your accuracy of coding, your bug making thing is going down, your accuracy of coding is going down. Now, why does that matter? I'm going to just make a statement, and I want all of the working professionals to vote a yes or no. The statement is that a developer usually spends X amount of time writing code, but 10x amount of time debugging and testing that. Do you agree? Do you disagree?
Yeah, so yeah, most of the folks agree to that, Anshuman. I mean, yeah, I cannot see any no's. Yes, meanwhile, there are some questions. There are a lot of questions actually. I think I covered this. So someone asked, I'm not an engineering graduate, have done BCA, current profile is non-technical, no experience for technical, 5 years of experience in total. Are you eligible? Yes, so as mentioned before, that the background will not become a hindrance. So if you want to switch your domain, switch your careers, even not just for this, for everything, like for everything, if you want to maybe go into a marketing job, go into a sales job, I mean, why would it stop you? If you know the right things, then why would you not be eligible for it, right? That's what, like, think about it. So that won't be a problem, I feel. So yeah. So Abhinav says, I'm currently good with DSA, but like when get whalings from some good companies, then I find that there's, should we do? Okay, Abhinav. I'm not sure what the question was, but it's fine. I think I've got this as well. So there are multiple questions that are repeated, right? Vivek, yes. So you can think about fun. So it's not a far-fetched idea for an Android developer. It actually depends upon the role, So whatever role you're targeting for that company, so you must have a defined role, right? It should be not like I just want to work there without even defining a role or without you know like knowing what you're going to work there, right? Someone asks, I want to grow UI UX designer and need an opportunity to work in an MNC that gives good salaries. Okay, I mean you are, but you are eligible to work for an MNC, but it actually requires a lot of uh, knowledge about other things as well. So this particular thing that we are focusing on right now is full stack and backend developing, right? And for that particular thing, you need to know what Anshuman is covering right now. Okay, so I think Anshuman is ready with his piece, and the last question that he mentioned was a code he usually spend a developer rather usually spends X amount of time writing the code, but 10x amount of time actually debugging it. So yeah, Anshuman, most of the folks agree to it, and I request you to take the session further. So yeah, I'll pass it on back to you.
Right. So majority of you believe that yes, that is true. I mean, you spend most amount of time on debugging and testing, which is actually true. Like most developers spend a lot of time on debugging and testing, and therefore, the more your coding accuracy, the faster you can get to the final state of the code. If you have very high coding accuracy, maybe the same piece of code takes you 2 hours to write, but there is a colleague of yours who has to debug it multiple times, and for that colleague, it might take 10 hours to write. That leads, and that just directly translates to productivity in real work, right? So, firstly, it has some correlation to coding accuracy, which leads to higher productivity. And actually, that's the reason. That's one of the reasons why companies index so heavily on data structures, algorithms, and your coding skills. In fact, a lot of companies do whiteboard rounds where they don't even give you an editor. They tell you that here is a whiteboard. Go and write the code there. Imagine you have no syntax highlighting, nothing, and then you're writing a code on a whiteboard. They do that because they want to see how accurate is your code. The second thing which actually happens here is that it is very true that most of the time you will not face problems that involve very high level of problem solving. But 1 to 5% of the time you will face those kind of problems. And then how you respond to that, what kind of efficient code you write then defines a good versus great. For example, in my own work, I had multiple such occasions. The degree of separation example that I quoted, that is actually a real example from my work, where I was asked to write code that when people visit somebody else's profile, let's say I visit Nanu's profile, at that moment, give me the degree of separation between Anshuman and Abhimanyu. Now, Facebook's graph, which is like where users are and then the friends are these edges, has billions of nodes and trillions of edges. How do you find degree of separation? Degree of separation is nothing but shortest path between two nodes. How do you find shortest path in such a huge graph? Is actually a problem solving problem. If I write an inefficient code there I cost Facebook millions and millions of dollars because every single code that you write will be executed billions of times in a day. So additional CPU cycles have actually cost associated with them. So the other piece is like at high scale, efficiency is money, and that defines good versus great engineers. So that's topic number 1, which you should get good at. I'll also talk about how to learn it, where to learn it from. Topic number 2 is something that might not be very relevant for interviews, but it is important to be a good engineer, good well-rounded engineer. And then the way to think about your career is that for all of you, your career is a 40-year journey. People usually graduate at the age of 20 years and they retire at the age of 60 years. If you want to build a career in the field of software engineering, you need to understand software engineering in a lot of depth. And therefore, I believe, this is my belief, so please take that with a pinch of salt because it's not asked in interviews. I believe CS fundamentals for people is very important, given it's a 40-year career, right? With CS fundamental includes operating systems, databases, and networking. This is computer networking, right? So, for example, let's say your code is running on another server. There, if the machine goes slow, or if your code starts to run slow, suddenly the latency shoots up. Understanding why that latency is going up on that particular machine but not on the other machine, there might be actually a memory problem. And for that, you need to understand how memory is managed inside an operating system. Or maybe I write a query, and that query is running really slow. Now, again, understanding how indexes work, whether a particular index can be applied on this query or not, that requires you to understand how data is stored inside a database, right? Especially relational database. If suddenly you have a surge of traffic, or suddenly your machine is not able to talk to the other machine, then understanding why is that happening requires you to understand networks, how routers work, how switches work, how are two machines talking to each other. In fact, a lot of you guys might have used WebSockets or sockets or MQTT protocol wise on sockets. That is pure networking, like how being able to make a socket connection and then transferring bytes on that. That is pure networking. So you will utilize all of these concepts. I mean, don't go after the theory, but you'll utilize the concepts if learned in the practical way a lot in regular work. I'll again take one of my examples. One of the things that happened at Facebook was that we were running this massive server that would do caching for messages. Now that was very memory intensive, and the entire server was written in Java. Java, for those of you who have worked in Java, would know that Java has a garbage collector that helps, collect objects that are no more in use. At such a scale, even the garbage collector got really, really slow, which was causing the entire application to become very slow. So we had to tweak garbage collector, and it is impossible to tweak garbage collector unless you're really good at operating system. If you do not understand what kind of objects get created, what happens as their life cycle increases, etc., what kind of levels exist within memory of operating system, it's impossible to tweak garbage collector. You can try multiple things, but you can't do that at such a scale in production environment. So that was again a real reality check, right? Like if you don't understand operating system, then it just makes you or handicaps you in being a better developer. So that's the second piece, which in my opinion is important. This is not important for interviews. Probably for entry-level interviews, which is fresher interviews, it might be important, but for all senior interviews, mostly you will not be grilled on operating systems or networking or databases. But this is very important for on-job performance. Now I'll talk about a few other fields which are categorized into the field known as design. And this is actually very, very important for people here who have more than 3 years of experience, especially one is called as low-level design. Low-level design is also called as OOPS design, which is object-oriented programming-based design. I'll explain what this is. And the second is called as high-level design, HLD, or some people might also know this as system design. Let me first explain what these are, and then where is this? Low-level design is the art of designing your code, like components of your code, in a way where it is very easy to extend or remove components. What I mean by that is, imagine I asked you to build a coffee machine. Then I actually asked you to add the capability of dispensing an espresso. Then I asked you to add the capability of dispensing a cappuccino, and which is where you actually mix some coffee powder, you mix some other thing, and then you create that espresso, right? Maybe I asked you to remove a feature. Maybe I asked you to even add the capability of making tea inside. Every single thing that you do as you're expanding code, if you have to write a minimal number of lines of code to be able to support that new requirement, then your design is great. But if you have to rewrite your code almost, then your design is bad. And this is actually a very well-researched field on how to create design that can adapt to changing requirements, depending on what your application is, what kind of application it is. That field is called low-level design. And there are a few existing design patterns that exist, but in general, like what kind of things to take care of is discussed as part of LLD. This has some amount of overlap with schema design as well, which is when you start thinking of an application, what kind of schema should it have in case you are using a relational DB. If you're using a NoSQL DB, then what kind of schema should that have? Has some amount of overlap, but a lot of overlap to the code design. So so if you look at interviews, however, this is important. This actually starts surfacing in interviews of people with more than a year of experience. If you have more than 1 year of experience, you'll start seeing some rounds on LLD. If you have more than 3 years of experience, then you'll definitely see rounds of low-level design. No company would hire you without testing you on this, except for Google. Google only tests on PSA. But every other company will want to test you on LLD. With respect to work, I believe even for freshers, this is important. Every single person needs to learn LLD to be able to write high quality code. So for job performance, everyone should learn LLD. One thing to note here is like the design topics that I've mentioned here. As you gain experience, as your experience becomes 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, 15 years, the importance of design topics goes up. The tolerance of you making mistakes with design, that goes down. You have to get really good with design as your experience is increasing. DSA, the importance decreases. It's still there. I mean, as I said, like first round or maybe first 2 rounds will still be DSA, but the importance of design rounds will go up with time. The second topic, which is high level design. High level design is the art of designing systems at scale. And let me elaborate. A lot of us would have built projects in college where you have designed, let's say, I mean, one of the favorite college projects in my college was building this chat app. People would build something like a Google chat, and that is the project they would submit, which is like just one single project working on my laptop, probably 5 users, 6 users, not more than that. However, let me talk about the scale of Facebook Messenger that we follow. Facebook Messenger, there were about 50 billion messages being generated every day. Every single day, 50 billion messages were being sent. Right, so let me just write that down. 50 billion messages being sent every day, right? Now imagine the size of every message is 500 bytes. This includes the message ID, uh, the who sent the message, who the message got to, timestamp, and a bunch of other stuff. Now, very quick question. If there are 50 billion messages being sent, if every message is 500 bytes, how much of information, how much data, how many GBs or how many terabytes of information is being generated every day?
Right. I hope you all have the question right in front of you. So if some people missed it, so 500, I think what was it, 50 billion messages generated in a day, and 500 bytes is the size of one message. So how much data is being transferred or stored in a day, rather. Meanwhile, I'll address some questions. So Ashish, for your question about how you can find jobs in European countries, so I mean, I mean, it actually depends upon, like, you have to approach the company yourself. So the referral channel that Scalar has refers you to a lot of companies, but we are not sure what's the percentage of people that actually go into the European companies, right? But that being said, I think so. Mohit Yadav is our lead instructor at Scalar, and he is from Meta UK, right? So, and he was a Scalar student before. So, with that being said, I think, yeah, there are a lot of, like, the opportunities are there, but it's really hard to get into those companies. But I'm sure since yeah, so I'll just hold on. I'll just unmute my Slack. Just mute my Slack. Oh, no problem. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so as I was saying, Ashish, that it's really hard to get into those companies, but like, we will be concerned about getting you there, and after that you'll have to sort of, like, bring your magic or your spark into it and possibly get over the line. So I'm a telecom engineer in Central Government Organization with 12 years, but zero coding knowledge. So yes, Samya. So what I would suggest for you first is just try learn to code on your own. Go to some free resources that we'll be providing some free resources for you, so you don't have to worry about that. But my personal recommendation would be to try learn to code on your own. What that would do is you'll actually get a clear idea of, do you really enjoy this thing or not, right? So yeah, that is, I think, my advice to you. But if you want to know that if this is the right platform transfer, definitely this is, because as I mentioned before, that most of the people have like switched their domains and got into these companies. So yes, you are at the right place. Ashish asks, is DSM a skill to have a job abroad? Yes, it is. So in any of the companies, in any of the big companies, any of the big product based companies, if you have, if you know how to sort of do DSA problem solving, then it is. Because as Anshuman even mentioned, that a guy who had 26 years of experience had to go through two DSA rounds, right? A guy who has 26 years of experience. So you can see what the level is. Um, how likely it is for an advanced scaler member to get an offer from Fang within 6 months. So, as I mentioned, that there are referral channels, there's peer community as well that refers you to it as well. So the referrals are not that important. The most important thing is, if you like, are you ready for that? Because I mean, as Anshuman has covered the curriculum that is there, and I think just one piece is there for it. So data structures, algorithms. So as I mentioned, that only Google is the one that has DS in your interviews. So as you move on further, so like we just had a session with the Microsoft alumni on 15th of Feb, where they told us that they had to go through 4 rounds. Two of the rounds were DSA. Third round was HLD, I think LLD, and the fourth round was LLD. And after that, there was a NHR round as well. And before even that, there was a screening one as well. So essentially, if you had to count everything, there were 6 rounds. So four of them, I mean, you don't have to face elimination, but the first one with screening is you will get eliminated from that. So it's a very far-fetched question, I would say, because like in the beginning, you don't have to focus on that, and so you have to focus on are you like able to solve those questions or solve those problems that are there. So yeah, I would say that. The criteria of this course for the eligibility. Okay, so what I'll do is, as most of the folks are a bit confused about what the curriculum, as the curriculum is there, but what the topics would be for the course. So what I'll do is, after maybe Anshuman is finished with this piece, later on, we'll sorry, we'll go through the Scalar website, where I'll give you a run through of everything that is there, so that you all have a clear idea of what this is about. By the way, for everyone asking about the data science, uh, like the jobs related to data science, so it is a different course. There are some similarities between the Scalar Academy one and the Scalar Data Science one, so it is a bit different. With that being said, like the duration, also there's a slight difference as well. So what I'll do is, maybe at the end of the session, I'll show that data. Yes, Mrinal, we do. We like job not just out of India. We provide the companies. We get referrals to the companies. Now the location depends on the company, right? Subrata, like if you want to learn coding, so if you want advice for a better future, I mean, I'm not sure if I'm the right person to tell you, but if you want to like code, if you think that you can code, if you think that you like code, then you like to code, right? If you do, then you maybe get on to some of the basics of codings. Uh, just try to learn some things on your own, and if you do, after that, maybe get on to the advanced stuff that Anshuman is mentioning about DSA problem solving. And if you think that you are capable of doing that, or if you think that you like sort of like are getting into it, you think that this is where you could excel at, then definitely go with this thing. But first, you have to build a foundation. So you have to know the basics of CS, the CS fundamentals, right? Okay, so I completely forgot that there was a question asked. So Ravi says 25 KB. Are you sure, guys? 25 KB. So the question was, um, 550 billion messages being sent every day and 500 bytes for every message. How can it be 25 KB? Okay, someone says 25 TB, 25 KGB, Pankaj says. So I think I'll let Anshuman reveal the answers. Right. Yeah, so I'll let Anshuman reveal the answer. So Anshuman, I'll just pass it on back to you and take the questions 14 questions. So I'll take it later on. I'll just pass it on back to you to reveal the sort of the answer for everyone. So yeah.
It is approximately 25,000 billion bytes. Right? A billion byte is nothing but a GB, which is 25,000 GB, which is nothing but 25 terabyte, because 1,000 GB is 1 terabyte. Now, imagine how big is 25 terabyte. This is the amount of information being generated in one day. Right? Some of the best laptops that we have, they have a hard disk of 1 terabyte. What this means is every day Facebook Messenger is generating enough information where you need to buy 25 new laptops every day just to be able to store that information. And even after you store the information, the storing the information is not enough. Because tomorrow Pratik might come and ask me, hey, give me my most recent 25 conversations with Rajat. Or Shivam might ask me that, show me all of my messages that contain the word COVID. Or maybe vaccine, some word, right? Like, and I have to be able to go and search that quickly in a database of messages where I have to add 25 new machines every day just to be able to store that information. That's the scale that you're dealing with now. Now, at that scale, being able to fetch messages quickly, being able to make sure that the app is still running very, very fast, that requires skills of designing system the right way, designing which information goes in which machine the right way, designing where things can get cached the right way, being able to optimize consistency versus availability. That entire field of study is called high-level design or system design. And this is actually, if you are an engineer who is SD2 plus, senior engineer or higher than that, this is absolutely important for you. You'll not grow in your career if you don't understand how to architect systems. The place where you have to maybe place more focus changes if you're a front-end developer versus a back-end developer. But understanding the web architecture for a front-end developer or understanding the back-end architecture for a back-end developer is super important. In interviews as well, if you have more than 3 years of experience, there's a very high chance you'll encounter an interview on system design where you're asked to design something or to draw up the diagram, maybe put the software names there, being able to rationalize on design choices you make, on why this is the right design choice for this kind of thing. The systems that are read heavy, write heavy, the systems that want higher consistency versus the systems that want higher availability. Being able to design that is important. Again, if you note here, till now, I have not talked about any tech stack. I haven't mentioned .NET. I haven't mentioned Java. I haven't mentioned Python. I have not mentioned Golang. I have not mentioned React.js or AngularJS or Node.js. Because all of these topics, they do not depend on the tech stack. And these are the things that are asked in interviews. Companies don't actually go looking for tech stack. That being said, that does not mean that tech stack is not important. What is important is that you know one tech stack, any tech stack, and you're good with that. You know how to utilize that tech stack, because any tech is just a tool, right? Like you can utilize that tool to create a project, your choice if you want to create something. Tomorrow, if I have an idea, whatever tech stack, can I utilize that tech stack to implement that idea? That's important. And that is what those companies care for as well, because chances are, if you go and join a company, you'll end up changing your team, and every single different team would be working on a different tech stack. For example, I was a C++ developer when I joined Facebook. My first team was working on Java, so I had to learn Java immediately. Within a week, I had to get productive there. Then I moved to another team when I was leading the London thing, where the primary tech stack was Python. So I learned Python and I did that. And that is the expectation. They don't expect you to know Python already. So the last piece is, you know one tech stack. One second. last piece is you know one tech stack and you know that well. And you are able to implement things, right? Now, if you're a backend engineer, then you're able to implement backend heavy stuff, which is optimized for concurrency, multi-threading, optimized for scale, doesn't break if I bombard a lot of traffic for it. If you're a full stack or a front-end engineer, then you build functional apps that work really well, right? And it doesn't matter what the tech stack is, just be able to utilize it as a tool, make it dance at your node. That's important. So projects are important still. I wouldn't say that they are not important. Projects are also important. Be able to utilize whatever you know, bring this all together and build projects. That's what I would say is the curriculum of things that you need to learn. Now, before I move forward, just a quick check on yes and no, whether this makes some sense, and then we'll go deeper into how to learn this, where to learn this from. So, just a quick yes, no.
Right, so we're done with the curriculum piece. I hope there's no doubts there, but I'll just maybe check the question bank just in case. So Madhu asked, if I get rejected by a company and reapply again, will my previous rejection affect my reattempt? First of all, no. What's your strategy to reply to a company? I wouldn't say there's a particular strategy. So I'll talk about Microsoft, right? So as the alumni session, I got to know a lot of like I got an in-depth knowledge about what the interview process or what specifically that particular thing is like. So they mentioned that there's no particular timeline for looking for maybe like scheduling another interview. So that's what they told us. So if that is the case, then the strategy to reply would like, I mean, if you like, God forbid, if you get rejected from an interview, so you know, like you'll know where you lack or where sort of you need to work on. Maybe pick up on those things and then like reapply whenever you think that you are ready. I think that would be one thing that I recommend. Right. And you can ask, how do we decide between full stack and backend? Madhu, sorry. So there are at Scala, what we do is we provide a lot of things, right? Not just teaching. So there are teaching assistants. There are mentors that you get connected to every once in 2 weeks. That sort of gives you a career pathway. So not just, we don't focus on your next job. We want to focus on your career as well. So how would you maybe go ahead after you've maybe joined this company X, and after, I mean, then you'll be connected to through Scalar like for a long time. It's not like that. When your course is complete, we get like, and we are paid, and we'll just say that it's over. It's not like that. So what will do? The thing is, most of the teaching assistants, the mentors, they guide you. They actually like know your whole career journey, and these are individual, by the way, right? So every particular student is allotted a mentor, a teaching assistant that Anshuman will cover in depth. So I'm just waiting for it. So that in that way, we give you multiple options. We'll tell you what the benefits of full stack, the pros and cons of both things, and then you get to decide on your own. In the shorter run, I mean, as I said that I'll run you through the website where there are multiple like there are multiple topics that are there, and you would get to know like which one is more suitable for you. Yes, I'm not sure I follow. Yeah, you can drop me a text, but if that's the case, so I'll not able to pick it up. Sohail, like I'll ban you for now, but I mean that's not how you like talk to someone in a session. So that's not really appreciated. Um, I'll not even answer your question now. So, should we practice DSA by participating in contests over platform like Code Forces, where people focus on what we move on practice standard DSA question and practice problem around that? It depends upon enough. So, what I would suggest is you can So what I would suggest is you can maybe look at the free resources that, okay, so I think this next piece would help you out enough. So I'll actually let Anshuman cover this. Um, there are, like the one we are focusing on right now is the full stack and backend developing. And obviously the SD1 jobs, SD1, 2, 3 jobs, right? And I think the course and the curriculum related to that is really different, right? So, um, right. So I'll let actually Anshuman cover the free resources. Like where can you learn it from on your own? If you think that you have some sort of a constraint, maybe a time constraint or a financial constraint, you think that, or this course is not like you do not feel that way about Scala. So I think we'll cover the free resources now. So that would give you a brief idea on where you can learn it from on your own, right? So I'd request Anshuman to take the screen again.
Awesome. So first, what I would do is I would maybe just very quickly talk about if you were learning it on your own, where could you possibly learn this from? And then I would also talk about what happens within Scalar Academy, what is covered and how is it covered in the curriculum, and then like just maybe an entire pedagogy of how Scalar Academy works, why um, there is such a high success rate at Scalar Academy. But before that, let me discuss like if you had to learn it on your own, where do you go and learn it from? PSA and problem solving. There, I had mentioned we had started initially with InterviewBit. InterviewBit is actually a great website. If you go and check it out, it's completely free of cost. Has very good structure to it. You can go and learn it from there. There are other websites as well. I mean, so there is InterviewBit. There is LeetCode. LeetCode has great discussion on these problems. So you can check out LeetCode. If you don't want to code that frequently, but if you want to just consume a lot of content, Geeks for Geeks has a lot of content to learn some of the concepts. Right? So those are free resources which you should look at. CS fundamentals, I mean, unfortunately, I've still been on the lookout to find very, very structured, very filtered content on operating systems, databases, and networking. There is just either too much of content or too little content. I haven't been able to find the right mix yet. So unfortunately, I can't suggest anything for OS databases and networking yet. But let me move on to the low-level design. Low-level design as well, I mean, unfortunately, there isn't anything very, very exhaustive. But one good website you should check out if you find chances. There's this website called refactoring.guru. This has a lot of design patterns for Java mentioned. Again, like LLD is not only design patterns, there is so much more. But at least for design patterns, this is a very, very good reference. You should check it out. On high-level design and system design, there is one book called Designing Data-Intensive Application. If you can read through the book, that would be great because it covers a lot of content. It's slightly elaborate, but it's a good book. There are a few YouTube channels as well which are very basic in nature. For example, there is a channel by Gaurav Sain which talks a little bit about system design. Those are basic in nature, but they're still good starting points. On projects you'll have to do yourself. So those are some resources which you can check out on your own time if you want to. They are good free resources. I'll very shortly now talk about Scalar as well. But before that, just a quick yes, no, if that makes sense, if there are any questions there.
Right. So for those of you who have missed out on what Anshuman has provided, I'll just quickly pin everything in the chat. I was just typing it while Anshuman was saying. So I just pinned it in the chat. That's for your reference. You can maybe copy this text on your notes and you can have a look at it later. So these were the free resources that you can sort of look on your own and get to know about like how like what actually goes into it before. If you think that how to remember problems once solved. Okay, so we has done that thing as well. So yeah, that message is pinned as well. So you can see two messages, right? So I mean, copy any one of that you want. Right. So Abhinav, I'll take this question later. I'll provide this particular thing later on, right? When I'll take you through the website, right? So we asked, do you provide guidance for non-technical jobs like Agile, Scrum, project and project management? What sort of background is needed for such roles at Mang companies? Are there any specialized streams like DevOps, engineering, and backend? There are, but as I mentioned before, that these courses are focused on full stack and backend developing only. However, uh, what I can do is I can maybe arrange a call for every one of you. I can maybe provide a link that you can connect with our alumni, uh, and they'll be scheduling a call. We'll be scheduling a call for you with them, and then you can sort of talk to them and actually tell your experience, share your experience, like um, why do you want to do what you want to do, or like your career options basically. So it's a career. I mean, it's a career counselor, so you can call back, have a call back, and then get to know like what sort of stuff you can do going forward, right? And as I mentioned, that the teaching assistants and those will be there. Um, so Leon has asked, how can I master low-level design without knowing much in front-end dev? Um, Firstly, you get to know low-level design, then you can maybe get onto that. So this question is actually reversed. However, what I'll suggest is, I mean, as the free resources are there as well, and the topics that will be covered. So I'll actually the next chance I get, I'll actually look up some data from Scalar's website and just let you know what sort of these two are. This like what sort of topics are covered, so that you get an idea of what we are covering. Right? I think this question has been answered. Would you say that staying in the same MNC for 5 is not advisable for a fresher? I mean, it's not mandatory, but I mean, I've seen people that have maybe switched like let's just 3 times in 13 years and maybe 12 times in 13 years. So that doesn't really matter. The only thing that matters from this particular thing is if you move on to your next company, um, and if you keep on switching really quick. So that's what their concern is, like you're not like they would consider that you would probably move very quickly, right? So that would be a thing, but staying in the same MNC is not advisable for a fresher. No, I would not say that. I mean, you can stay for in 5 years, but 5 years I think is a long time if the growth potential is not there. If the growth, like if you're growing exponentially, so if you join a company that is growing, uh, that would enable your career to grow as well, right? So for 5 years, it depends on the company actually. So for an MNC, so if you're talking about TCS for a service base, then I would not recommend you to stay there for 5 years. But yeah, definitely the other companies, if you're like maybe at a Meta or like big product based companies, then why not, right? Abhinav asked, I'm currently good with DSA, but like okay, I think I covered this one. Then um, so it is so Pradipta again. So I see that most of the questions are related to that. So what I'll do is after and like Anshuman gets finished with the quiz, I'll say again that uh, make you, I'll have a run through the website, and there you can actually find out like most of the questions that you are asking are on the website, right? Hi, Aniket asks, can you tell me how Skilla decides the minimum cap for a student? I mean, so there's a test, as I mentioned before, that there's a test. You have 3 attempts for it, and you sort of get classified as a beginner, an intermediate, and an advanced. And what are the topics that are there? I'll again cover, and again that is on the website. So I'll actually like most of the questions that I can see. Can I continue my career only in Python plus DSA? I'm not sure I follow. Um, but if you're asking that, if you only want to learn these two things, then the big companies won't just like as I mentioned that Google only asks for DSA in the interviews. But when you are actually working in Google, you need to know the low level and high level design, right? So no, I think that there has to be some sort of a diversity there, not just Python, but the I think the job or the course demands it. Not the course, but job or whatever project you are handling that demands it. Yeah, right. So yeah, so I think the rest of the questions that are related that are on the website. So I'll actually let Anshuman get to the scalar piece where how we can sort of help you and what are like you already know the curriculum, right? So how we can help you like get where you want to. So I'll actually let Anshuman cover that piece. So yeah, Anshuman, back to you.
Awesome. So let's actually move on to the scalar piece, right? Now, what we described here is actually the curriculum for scalar as well in some form. There is, if you enroll into scalar, the first thing is you get categorized as a beginner or an advanced or an intermediate. That is the first step. Now, that is just an indication of how much you know already. So there is beginner, there is intermediate, and there is advanced. Beginner, right now we don't enroll. We only enroll intermediate and advanced. The curriculum duration for advanced is 7 months. For intermediate, there is an additional 2-month duration, which means a total of 9 months, which after 2 months you get merged into advanced, the beginning of advanced. What I'm going to discuss is what is the curriculum for advanced, because intermediate is just to help you learn enough things to be as good as somebody who's an advanced user. What is the curriculum for advanced? Let's actually just look at that very, very shortly. Everything that is mentioned here, starting with DSA problem solving, then CS fundamentals, then low-level design, high-level design, those are all part of the curriculum along with projects as well. We get you to build projects. There, project-wise, we get you to build one basic project and one capstone project. Very similarly here as well, one basic, one capstone. The reason why this is slightly differentiated and actually very heavily differentiated is one, the pedagogy, and I'll talk about that a little later. But especially with design topics, one of the things is that just reading something or consuming a YouTube video is not enough. The key element there is being able to actually design something and somebody pointing out that here is where I have made mistakes, here is where I could improve my design. Unless and until you do that design multiple times and people give you feedback, you will not internalize the learning. So learning happens when you make mistakes. That two-way communication of you being able to design something and somebody giving you feedback happens. We're able to at least facilitate that right now because of the pedagogy. I'll talk about how that happens. But the curriculum more or less is data structures algorithms, followed by CS fundamentals, followed by low-level design, schema design, etc. is also covered here, followed by high-level design, where we initially discuss a lot of components, a lot of popular technologies, how they work inside. For example, how does a Kafka system work? How does a Cassandra work, etc., etc. We go from the building blocks. We talk about load balancer, application layer, what is caching, what is a database, what is a relational DB, what is a NoSQL DB, and then we slowly build up on top of it, start talking about big systems. And then we start talking about case studies. For example, there we start looking at how would you design a messenger? How would you design, let's say, Twitter? Or how would you design Netflix or YouTube or a Uber kind of an app? And then post that, then we actually get into building projects, which is applying one tech stack that you know in the best way possible, which we get you to keep it public so that other people can also check out the work that you've done. Now, more than like the content, as I said in the beginning, if you remember, more than the content, our learning was how you learn and how is that education done. That is the more important part. So while content curriculum very important, we believe like the real difference actually comes from how that is taught. So there I just want to maybe spend just a few moments. Every student at Scalar, student or learner, whatever we want to call it, they get 4 things which are very, very important. One is all of learning actually happens in a live class setup. And live class is not taken by professors, but taken by people who have themselves worked at a Google or a Facebook or a DirectEye or a Microsoft or Google or Amazon in the past, where they have been there, done that, and therefore they understand what's needed to be learned. We vet them out on their teaching skills. So you'll find that most people are great teachers at Scalar. So one is live class, right? The live class is important because you can engage. As you're learning, if you have a doubt, you ask it there itself. The second piece, and then live class also enforces structure and schedule. It enforces some amount of discipline. The second piece, which is very important, which we believe is that we have seen that people who have elder siblings who are already, elder bhaiya or elder didi, already working at a great company have had a much, much higher probabilities of actually ending up like their elder sibling. So therefore, one thing which we did was we give every single student a one-on-one mentor. And mentor is somebody who is also a software engineer, more experienced than you, a few years ahead of you in the journey, and is probably the person that you want to become. Now, this person talks to you once every 2 weeks. Some of these sessions are mock interviews where the person actually evaluates you, tells you where your weaknesses are, tells you where your strengths are. Some of those sessions are more of just seeing where you're struggling and then helping out at those places. This is the personalization part, right? Like, this is not just one course fits all. There is this personal angle to it where there's one person working with you one-on-one and gets on a call with you every 2 weeks. Apart from a regular classroom like this one. The third piece is a teaching assistant. Now, teaching assistant is also a software engineer who comes from a very similar kind of a background, working at great companies, the Goldman Sachs and the Facebooks and the Googles of the world. One thing that happens there is that in case every single live class is followed by assignment and homework where you have to write code. We believe in computer science, being hands-on is extremely important. And when you solve those problems, when you start writing code, if you get stuck, teaching assistants actually help you out. Even if there is let's say a concept that you maybe understood in the class, but later on you realize that, hey, I probably did not understand the concept really well. Then the teaching assistant would come on a video call with you one-on-one to explain that concept. If there are assignments, especially design assignments, where you make some submission and then you want somebody to manually review it, the teaching assistant would actually manually review it. There are different teaching assistants per different module. But teaching assistants are very, very important in the ecosystem. They help you give, again, that personal touch. And the last piece, which I believe is the most important piece, and not a lot of people realize it, is your peer community. In my college, I learned less from my professors. I learned a lot more from people around me. I would walk into somebody's hostel room and they might be working on Google Summer of Code, and that's how I would discover Google Summer of Code. If I had a problem or if I did not understand something properly, I might go and ask a fellow classmate and they might explain it better. There is a lot of competition or healthy competition that actually happens between people who are learning together, and that helps you keep going. Peer community is very important, and we have actually been able to crack it to a certain extent. People graduate from Scalar Academy with a lot of close friends that they know by face and name. Peer community in our context, we believe, is very, very important. That's another pillar of learning at Scalar. Those are the 4 things that come together to actually deliver the curriculum that you saw. Every single lecture followed by assignment homework, so we get you to write a lot of code throughout the course. The one thing to note here is that while great outcomes happen to people who enroll, and I'll show you those numbers, the reason why that happens is that this is a very intensive course and takes a lot of effort. So therefore, I want to be upfront and tell you that unless you can put in that amount of effort, and unless you can devote that amount of time every week, especially because you're a working professional. Most people um, in our batches are working professionals, but that is where it becomes a problem for people to manage time. If you can't do that, don't enroll. But like there is a lot of time commitment. Anything great would require a lot of effort. Daily, let me actually talk about weekly. Right? So weekly, there are 3 live classes. Each live class is 2 to 2.5 hours. So there is 6 to 7.5 hours of weekly live class time commitment. Plus everything is followed by assignments. So to be able to do the assignment just takes you another 7 hours or so. This is on average of 2-hour time commitment every day. Right? This is 2 hour daily, which is a lot of time commitment. Right? So just also calling out that this is a fairly intensive course. It would require a decent amount of time commitment. Now, just to cover more things on Scalar, I know that I've been doing this monologue. Before I move forward, just a quick check. Like, are things till this point making sense? I'll take you through some data points and some more interesting stories that might help you and associate a lot more with. But before that, just a quick check. Yes, no. If things till this point make sense.
Right. I hope that you just sort of got an idea of what like teaching at Scalar is about and how we go on ahead with the number of people that are there. So I'll just give you some quick details. So the batch size is I think around 1200 to 1500. Yeah, Madhu, I will. So it's no problem. I've been doing it, so I don't see how that's a problem. Anyway, how to get in touch with alumni directly? I'll provide you the links. Don't worry about that. Yeah. Would really be helpful if you care. Okay, so the next piece that Anshuman has, I think it will cover some data points, so I think you'll get an idea. So, unfortunately, there's no guidance on cloud at the moment. However, as I mentioned, that the teaching assistant that you will get, they'll provide you a better info of how you can sort of like get into deep dive into it, right? And you can even, tell your like user-centric stories, if you will. By that, I mean, what's your journey been like up till this point? What do you like sort of see ahead? Like, where do you see yourself going, or in a different company, or somewhere between those lines? So you get the idea, right? So that would help, but currently not on cloud as far as I know. So the teaching assistant will tell you a better version of this, right? I think I already addressed this. Yeah, so seems like most of the questions that are there, okay, is it suitable for experience? So yeah, so most of the questions, I think Anshuman will be covering some FAQs as well. So you need not to worry about that. Skills providing many courses. So Pradipta, yes, so there are not a lot of courses, but there's one particular. So that's why we merge it all into one. And that is sort of the curriculum that is required to get into those big product companies. So that is what the idea was. So because as multiple courses, you would require some of the other thing, right? If you do X, then you would require Y as well. That is why the ideology behind that was this: that you get everything consolidated at one place, so that you don't have to like reach out to many places, right? And as far as the topics are concerned, I've opened it on my other screen, but I'll be sharing the screen after Anshuman is done with the data points as well. So just to give you a quick recap, not a recap, but I'll give a walkthrough of what the topics are like. So first of all, the introduction, it includes decision trees and controls, binary number system, strings, I think arithmetic operations, and loops. So these 5 topics are there for the introductory phase that I think require 2 weeks to finish. Then we move on to the intermediate batches where there are different, where it gets, like now it starts to get a little tricky, right? And I'll run you through those topics as well. So yeah, I think I'll let Anshuman cover the data points which everyone is keen to know about. So I'll let Anshuman cover this, and then we'll quickly take through the questions, right? So yeah, Anshuman, back to you.
Cool. So let me just very quickly take you through the other components of Scalar, and this will take just a few minutes. The online Stanford piece I already talked about. In general, like these are some of the teachers, and this is a partial list of teachers. So there are other teachers as well. For example, you see only one person in the teacher group from Google. There are two other people who are also at Google and are currently working at Scalar. And one of them actually happens to be an ex-student of Scalar. From the first batch that we had. That person got into Google, worked there for a year, and loves our mission so much that they've joined us back as a teacher. Two people from Facebook, three from media.net. Now, Arnav has been with Zomato, Target. There are 2-3 people from Amazon. So you'll see that a lot of people who've been there, done that, they are the ones who teach in live classes, just like I'm doing right now. This is a thing that I just talked about. Like you go through live classes, you have one-on-one mentors, you have TAs, you have a huge learning community. Community helps in so many ways, right? You have these alumni who are working at top tech companies. They are the ones a lot of times that will guide you, and they are the ones a lot of times who will even drive referrals for you. We have our own referral channels as well, but I mean they help out. They help out a lot. Curriculum we had discussed. I think one other point which is very important to understand is that when we teach these topics, the topics are not taught in a way where I'll give you a problem statement and then I'll tell you the solution to the problem statement. They're taught in a way where we help you build a thought process to be able to solve the problem, which is how do you recognize the pattern. Instead of telling you the solution, I would rather talk about how should you start thinking about the problem. And then that's again one key differentiator on how those concepts are explained to you, because that thing is very important. I would very, very strongly advise that don't just look at problems and their solutions. That is not going to help you. Always have a takeaway with every single problem that you solve on like the pattern of solving the problem statement. Now, one of the arguments that I keep getting is, hey, I can prepare few things for free. Why shouldn't I do that? I would say, like, absolutely, if you can prepare for free, please do that. But I mean, there is positive upside of structured setup. And for that, I just want to maybe just ask a few questions so that I can convey across that point. How many of you know Sachin Tendulkar? There's a cricketer from India, which if you're India and not living under under a cave, you might be aware of who is Sachin Tendulkar. Like everybody knows about Sachin. And everybody knows, right? Exactly. So Sachin, when he was learning cricket, there were two options he had, right? Like there was this entire gully cricket community he could have learned cricket with, which is not bad at all. I mean, you have a bat, you have a ball, it doesn't cost you anything. Just go and practice with them and you learn cricket. Or you could have gone to Wankhede Stadium. On Wankhede Stadium, you have a coach who helps you correct your technique. You have other maybe higher caliber players that you learn a lot from. You have this schedule that you have to follow every day. Every morning you have to show up to Wankhede Stadium. You have to practice for 2 hours. Then you have to take a break and you have to practice for another 4 hours and so forth, right? While it is true that Sachin could have still succeeded without having gone to Wankhede Stadium, going to Wankhede Stadium had some higher probability of success. The structure is very similar. The Scalar Academy is the Wankhede Stadium. It is absolutely possible you study on your own and you still succeed. But again, not denying the fact that studying in a structured setup, which gives you a lot of these external push and external resources, helps increase the probability of learning. That's the only difference. There is nothing wrong with learning on your own. You should. And in fact, any help that we can provide to help you learn on your own, we will be very happy to do so without expecting anything in return. But there is upside to learning in a structured setup with so many supporting ecosystems. Now, the common questions that we get is, hey, am I too senior for this program? I have had people we've had people in Skiller Academy with 16 to 21 years of experience as well. One of the person that I was mentoring was a person who had 16 years of experience, has joined Hotstar as an architect. His name is Avinash Sawant. You can look him up on LinkedIn. One of the other person who is also in another batch has been an architect at VMware for a while now. His name is Arif. Again, you can look him up on LinkedIn. Those, again, like what that means is that, look, the base fundamental, the topics I discussed today are relevant for everybody. We talked about how DSA is relevant, how system design is relevant. And to be honest, not all of us are fortunate to be in a setup where we can see that kind of scale to be able to learn those things on our own through work. I was very fortunate to do so. And therefore, I'm helping convey some of my learnings in that course. But I mean, not everybody is. So irrespective of your experience, if you want to learn, this is a great place to be. A lot of people come here from all kinds of experiences. The second question that I usually get is, hey, look, I mean, I'm not a software engineer right now. I'm let's say, currently a DevOps engineer, or I'm currently an SDET. Is this the right program for me? One, if you're a DevOps or you're an SDET, I mean, one is you should be sure that you want to switch domains, right? Which is, if you want to continue as DevOps, nothing wrong with that. That's great. I mean, you can still grow a lot as a DevOps engineer, or you can still grow as an SDET. But in case you want to switch, then again, the primary parameter which I started with is not what you have done till now, but what can you do now? What kind of skills do you possess? If you have those skills, any kind of transition is actually possible. In the sheet that I had showed, where I was showing skill alumni, maybe if we have time left, I would also show you how a lot of people from different backgrounds have made transition. DevOps or QA or SDET or data analyst, those kind of backgrounds. The third question I get is, hey, I am a complete beginner. Should I join Skiller or not? Right now, for example, we don't do beginner batches. We might do it later on. That being said, if you are somebody from a very different domain, you have not coded, one of the other things I would request is please try learning coding on your own to some extent, maybe for a month or so. Explore whether you love coding or not, whether this is a field that interests you or not. You shouldn't just switch your field just because you find that suddenly a lot of people are talking about it. Interest is also important. Now, a lot of people have gone through the course from different kind of backgrounds. They've had different kind of outcomes. Again, this is not something to be expecting for everyone, but like we've seen that people post Scalar have about 2.6x jump in salary on average. And there are so many success stories, so many. I just showed you the data points on the tab with the query, which is just the last few months' data. That had about 1,100 something people. Total number of alumni base is higher than 2,000 now. This is actually old slide. Where people come from all kinds of backgrounds and they succeed. Again, enrolling into Scalar does not guarantee you'll succeed. It still is a big function of how much you learn, right? So all that Scalar does is helps you give a framework to learn the right things. If you learn the right things, nobody can stop you from succeeding. So that was a quick brief of Scalar, and we're happy answering questions. We're happy taking questions. I would pass it back to maybe talk about some of these questions.
Right. As promised, I think Anshuman is done with his piece. I'll share my screen. But before that, I'll see a question. Would I have access to the course even after the end of the course? Yes, Madhu, you would. You would. Yes. So I'll go in depth about that as well. I'll just quickly share my screen. Just let me know with a yes, no if you can see. I'll just quickly share. Yeah, I'm sharing my screen. Just let me know if you can see my screen. Okay, perfect. So this is the Scalar website. I just opened it in a different browser because obviously I have login access, and you might as well by now because you have enrolled for this course. sorry for this session. So this is the product that we are currently talking about. Not the product, but the course that we are talking about. And this is for the people that want to go into data science, machine learning, and possibly AI. So this is a different course. You can apply for this, and I mean check out the curriculum as well. There's a slight difference as this course is a little bit longer, and the uh, I mean the course also takes a lot of time as the topics are lot, right? That is why the course is different. But some of the topics like these topics that I told you before, these topics are same in the academy one as well. So right now we're not focusing on this. We're focusing on this the Skiller Academy program. For that, I'll just quickly see. Yeah. So these are success stories. I think some of the people wanted to know where like how like people have made a jump. So this is Naman. I'll just tell him. I think Anshuman was mentioning about him that one person joined Google and then came back as an instructor. So I think he was talking about Naman. So BML Munjal, I think that's a tier three college, and even I think Anshuman must not have heard of it, right? So then from coming from that college and learning to Scalar, getting onto Google and coming back to Scalar to work as an instructor. So I mean, you can obviously read his story as LinkedIn. So this is where I mean you can get that as well. These are the companies. These are some of the big companies that are there. Obviously, that most of the people are placed to, but these are the like marquee companies that we wanted to display, and there are obviously for more than 500 companies. I think this is where I think you all have booked your session. Yeah, so we are focusing on this course, right? So mid March, I think the next batch starts 15th of March around. So I was right. Um, I mean, you can explore Academy and check out different stuff. Then yeah, this is what I was talking about. So as Anshuman mentioned that you'll be enrolled into three different what shall I say? You'll be classified on base of this beginner, intermediate, advanced after you're giving a test after you applied for the course from here, right? And these are the topics that are covered over there. I mean, this is all in the website, so that's why I've not copied it or not talked about it, because you can obviously have access to this, right? Um, and after that, as someone was asking, what if I want to maybe sort of get into, like, how do I decide to get into full stack or backend? So this, like, from what we can help is we'll let you know that the topics that are covered. If you feel comfortable maybe in ORMs or like these topics, then you can maybe get into backend specialization, right? And obviously, but your mentor would be there as well to guide you through, and you'll obviously get a better insight over there. After that, you can download a detailed curriculum from here as well, right? No problem. As yeah, some of the people that are there. So these are not testimonials. These are people that have like randomly mentioned Scalar and have put this there. So most of the people that have put this, maybe put it out for some other people. They were asking questions, and those actually helped us as well. Right. These are our instructors. This is Anshuman, of course. These are our instructors. Remember, I was telling you about Mohit, the guy who was in UK Meta. So this is our lead instructor. In fact, we have a session. Tomorrow we have a session for Mohit. I'm not sure I know the topic right now, but I think every Sunday Mohit has a session at 5 to 8. So if you want to check out other events as well, I'll actually let you go through this as well. These are the frequently asked questions that are there. You can have a look at that as well, right? So essentially, everything that you wanted to ask, this is there. For everyone wondering about the scholarship fees, okay, my bad. I actually mentioned 35k, but it's 25k actually. So 10%, yeah, makes sense. 2.5L, 10% is this. All the details that I mentioned there, EMI plans, then you can actually pay up till 19 months, and scholarship details, of course, are there as well, right? Um, there seems to be a lot of noise here. I hope that you're not getting it. Yeah, so this was pretty much it about the Scalar website. That you can check it out. Everything is there. I mean, just spend some time here. You can. Most of the questions that you had are here, so you don't have to worry about that. Right. So Aniket, yeah. So it was not 35. It was 25k as 10% of 2.5L is 25. there seems to be a lot of noise coming from my area, but I hope it's okay for you. Um, yeah, with that being said, I just got a text from Anshuman. Anshuman has left the meeting because he had some urgent work. So Anshuman told me that Anshuman dropped me his mail ID. So if you have any questions specifically related to Anshuman about maybe the tech stuff that fortunately you might